Good morning, everyone. How are you? This is Enrique Sanchez of Spanish United. And today, we have a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure. My name is Steve Bovo. I'm the mayor of the city of Hialeah, second largest city in Miami-Dade County and sixth in the state of Florida.
Welcome on being on the show.
Thank you.
As we spoke per email, one of the reasons why I brought you on the show because our listeners are interested in the Cuban experience and Hispanic contributions to the city of Hialeah, Florida. So would you give a little bit of a background on that, please?
Well, imagine the city of Hialeah since the mid 1960s began a transformation as Cuban Americans were arriving into South Florida, fleeing the Castro regime. Many of them found a place to plant roots in the city of Hialeah. So since that point forward, city of Hialeah right now, I would say maybe I'm off by a point or two, is about 92% Hispanic city, of which that maybe 80% is Cuban American.
Mhm.
It's a city where you see the constant American dream before your eyes. Many come here seeking freedom, opportunity. Many came thinking that they were going to go back fairly quickly and have now seen themselves here establishing a lifetime, 60 plus years in this city. We turn 100 years old in 2 years, and 60 of those 100 years have been primarily guided by the Cuban Americans who have come here and established businesses, obviously gotten very involved in politics, and have probably touched every facet of this city over that period of time.
Nice, nice. Yeah, because one thing that I read about Hialeah, Florida, is that it is one of the most Cuban cities out of all of Miami, and it's also one of the wealthiest. Am I correct?
Well, I would say, yes, it's probably the most Cuban American city by percentage of population in the United States, and probably the most Cuban city outside of maybe Havana and Santiago, Cuba. So it's undeniable. Now, it's interesting about the city of Hialeah. It is a blue collar city, yet there is a lot of wealth here. Many folks that have come to the city of Hialeah over the course of the years and have established themselves are entrepreneurs, business owners. They, and in there lies their wealth. It is not unlike to see a very humilde, a very
Mhm.
humble looking home in Hialeah, yet have very expensive cars and a boat parked next to it, because as many of them feel, that is part of the American dream, the attaining of wealth and the attaining of leisure activities. I think is all part of it, at least one of the allures of many people that come actually and settle in our city.
One of the things that we do in Spanish United is that we emphasize Hispanic unity, and I feel that Hispanics as a whole need to have a collective conscious unity because as a group we can definitely do a lot more, and especially that the Cuban Americans have been so successful and contributed a lot to American society. They could do so much good and so much positive for the Hispanic community and as a whole, and they could be leaders and showing them how they've been able to get their successes, especially coming from a place which for the last 63 years, it's still on time. I was in Cuba last year. My mom her first husband was Cuban. My two half brothers are half Cuban, so I'm very connected with the Cuban community. I'm Puerto Rican myself, and I could tell you that even with the adversity that the Cubans have gone through, I think they could show that success to other Hispanics, that may have not gone through similar things that the Cubans have, but they could show them, hey, if we did it, you can do it too.
Yeah, look, I think it's very interesting, right? Because I think one of the aspirations, I think, of collective Hispanic culture is that we do have a linkage in language But then from there, it really becomes very sporadic, right? What a Mexican may feel compared to a Cuban, or what a Colombian may feel compared to a Puerto Rican, may not be the same experience, right? What I think what I see in Hialeah is, and I see this all over Dade County, and what may be particular to the Cuban American experience is that most famous Cubans, most Cubans that have attained a certain amount of respectability and notoriety um, for their accomplishments has all been done outside of Cuba,
Mhm.
and it kind of leads to, in my opinion, an example of when democracy, capitalism, and opportunity all come together. Those that are willing to excel can achieve a lot. So you don't see, and it's interesting because you don't see amongst a first wave of immigrants from the Cuban American experience in the 60s and 70s, you don't see a reliance on government help, government support.
Mhm.
But ironically, you do see that more and more over the last 20 years, 25 years, a reliance on some sort of government subsidy. And
Mhm.
and then it does create a frustration, I think, within the Cuban American exile community, is to try to understand, did you come to become part of an American experiment, part of the American dream, or did you come to take from the American dream? And that's something that may happen in different cultures. I know it happens within the Cuban American community with this conversation,
Mhm.
but talking to friends that are of Mexican descent, talking to friends that are Colombian descent, that have come and their generations removed from their countries, a lot of them sometimes feel the same thing, that we can show that if government just stays out of our way and is there to help, not hurt what we try to do, obviously doing things legally, you could achieve a lot. And you could achieve a lot more than you could ever do in your own country.
Right, absolutely. And one of the things that I see that many Hispanics, really need to emphasize on is the importance and value of education. Because when you go to a country that is not yours, you could have your wealth taken away, have your assets taken away, but one thing you cannot have taken away is your knowledge. And I feel that if Hispanics were to focus more on education instead of focusing working on their hands, not only they could achieve a lot more, but at the same time they could transplant that wealth of knowledge to their children. Because from what I've seen, with different Hispanic communities that I've visited, from Los Angeles to New York to Houston to wherever, is that they don't break the cycle of poverty. And part of that has to do is that there's no emphasis on education. Like, there's no problem, like you say, being humilde, and when you are here, you work temporarily doing whatever, but you only do that temporarily. You don't do that long term, and that's not something that you pass on to your kids. So that really needs to change, because I see that other communities, like the Asian community, which have been here for much less time than we have, are completely different racially, physically, speak a different language. Some of them come from pre-industrial societies, but yet within the same generation, they're able to excel and succeed. And I say to myself, how are they able to do it? And at the same time, they are doing much better than we are. So it's like we need to look at
Yeah.
ourselves and see what we're doing wrong, correct it, and try to make it better for our own people, because we're the largest minority, but yet we are invisible in many sectors, especially when it comes to academics and to the economy.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a house where they emphasized education continuously, and we do it with my children. I'm the father of five, and we talk a lot about education and the importance of that knowledge. Look, no doubt, those that are educated, and know how to use that education, because it's not just book smart. You have to have life,
Mhm.
common sense, right? Um, but there's no doubt that the statistics show that those that reach a higher levels of education earn more money, have better lives, quality of lives, no doubt about it. It's not to look down upon those that work with their hands, because as we well know now, getting a good mechanic is almost as having a good doctor, and they make a good amount of money also. But yeah, education is extremely important. I tour a lot of the schools here in my city, and have a lot of new arrivals. And part of our conversation with those new arrivals is just that, education. Make sure you understand the language. I myself, with family members, have advised them when they've migrated to South Florida, that my suggestion has always been, maybe just go live in Naples first, or Tampa, or someplace else where it's not so heavy on the Spanish, where you could learn English. And clearly, if you're bilingual, that opens a whole series of opportunities for folks that are stuck with their one language, whether it's English or Spanish.
Mhm.
If you don't dominate both languages, and I feel kind of dumb sometimes when I talk to people that speak 3 languages or 4 languages, right? Yeah, education is paramount, and that is something that across the board Hispanics should be emphasizing on their children, to hit those books and get that book knowledge, and then be able to use that book knowledge to aspire to be lawyers and doctors and engineers, and be role models, right?
Absolutely, because that's what I would like to see, is more role models in the Hispanic community, especially for the youth, because unfortunately, there's this easy lure of easy money, of getting involved in the black market, and
Mhm.
I feel that if
Yeah.
there are more positive role models, like if there was more emphasis on community work, volunteer work, having, I don't know if Hialeah has it, but if there are more community centers or boys and girls club where the youth can go there after work, after school, and not only be recreated, but at the same time learn skills, be tutored. I think that will help serve as a deterrent from keeping our youth away from gangs and away from trouble, because a lot of our youth, after African Americans, have the second highest incarceration rate in the United States, and that's bad. Something needs to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, to speak to that a little bit, we do have a very robust park and recreation program. And part of what we try to do in that park and recreation program is create after school activities, homework, assistance. And I've always been a big believer that through team sports, you could create great habits that could lead to leadership roles in industries and companies. And so, yes, the city of Hialeah historically has invested greatly in its park and rec programming with that mindset. And in fact, we're using it as a tool now. We've seen an uptick in immigration in our city. And one of the things that we've seen and been very noticeable is in a lot of schools, K2 through 12, we're seeing anywhere from 100 to 150 new kids in the new school year, or in this school year, being enrolled in school. And I feel very strongly that one of the ways to help those kids assimilate, dealing with everything that they've dealt with, right, to get to this country and leave friends and who knows what else behind, is our park and rec programs. Get them involved in sports. And I've always said, kind of kiddingly, is that the kid that doesn't know the language and it may be struggling to make friends in school, if he could hit a fastball over the fence, he's going to become very popular with all his friends, and they're really going to want him on the team. And that's
Mhm.
how you start building friendships, and but you do it by getting kids out into our park and rec program, and be participants, and we try to encourage as much as we can of that, and we've been successful up to now.
Nice. So, as mayor, what are the things that you have done in the city of Hialeah to improve, for example, the areas of homelessness, education, housing, and the standard of living for the people?
Well, the city of Hialeah, luckily, we haven't had what I would call homeless crisis. Although in the last couple of months, because of the influx of so many immigrants, and perhaps because of the border has become kind of like a sieve, um, it puts a lot of pressure on cities like mine, and we're not equipped. We're not equipped to handle these things by ourselves. We can't do it without federal government aid and support, and so we're always banging on a drum, trying to make sure that we get some sort of help from the federal government. We do apply for a lot of grants. We do have folks that go out into the community and try to address issues that families may be having that find themselves out on the street, so that we could kind of help accommodate them best as we can. We have used federal funds for rent mitigation and to assist folks that may find themselves in situations where they're running afoul on rent. In our water department, we've created a program to help those that live on fixed budgets, to help assume the cost of water, which is continually going up, across the nation.
Mhm.
Portable water is very expensive to deliver, and not to mention the treatment of that water through water and sewer, very, very expensive. So we try to help folks in that end by creating siphoning federal funds into some programs that we could help some folks mitigate these issues. We have a housing crisis in the city, probably not unlike any other city, where rent has really gone high. And I'm not a proponent of rent control, but I am a proponent of trying to do things in a just way, where sometimes greed gets a hold of somebody, and raising somebody's rent literally 100% from one year to the next is just devastating. Any one of us that owns a home like I do, if you were to raise my mortgage rate 100%, I'm struggling. I lose my home. Same
Right.
thing happens with renters. So we try to get involved as much as we can to help mitigate these things, understanding that a lot of it, capitalism plays a lot in this role. Economics 101 in supply and demand plays a big role in this. So as government, as much as I do not want to be intrusive in private transactions, we try the best we can to protect the little guy as much as we possibly can, and give them as much of a level playing field as we can, understanding that many folks that come to my community basically left because they didn't want government involved in running their lives.
Mhm. And how would you, for the future of Hialeah, what would you like to see different? Well, where would you like to see the city in the next couple of years once you leave office?
Excellent question. I talk to my folks all the time about looking in terms of 20 years from now, long after I'm gone, right? And what can we do now to begin setting that foundation? I'm a big proponent of economic development. We in the city of Hialeah are blessed because we have easy access to the airport, close to the beaches, a lot of highways that connect us to other parts of the state. And we want to leverage that. So we see a lot of investors coming in looking to invest in our city, and we want to promote and support that as much as possible. It helps me keep my taxes low, all this brand new development. But if I had a wish list, if I could say, look, I'd like 2 or 3 things to happen and start happening now so that I could maybe partake in them, years from now. One of those things would be to create restaurant and entertainment districts in our city. We've got good restaurants, but they're not all clustered in the same area. So I'd like to see something like that where people could say, go to a place and say, I've got 4 or 5 different restaurants to choose from, and maybe bars and some nighttime activity. Because we're such a blue collar town, a lot of our folks, including myself, leave the city to go to restaurants and to go to clubs and what have you. And I'd like to see some of that here in the city. So that's one of the things I'd like to do. And then the other is create more housing for young professionals. One of the Achilles for our city has been that because of the lack of housing, you get folks that move out of the city, may go to neighboring cities, yet have their parents still living here, so they still come back and forth constantly. And I'd like to keep my youth here, my young professionals here in the city, allow them to help me guide the future of the city. Because at some point, we're going to turn the keys over to them, and they're going to be in charge of the city, and they're going to be in charge of making sure things are running smoothly.
Okay, I definitely agree with you because one of the things that a lot of young people have concern in general is affordability of housing, at the same time be able to live in or near where they work, because it's unsustainable where uh someone has to work in a city but yet they have to live 1 or 2 hours away because they cannot simply afford where they live. So I think it's very important that there needs to be affordable housing, or I should say more housing for people to live in, because it creates an unmanageable, unsustainable situation. Like I've seen it in many places in California, where people have to live 1 or 2 hours away just to have a place to live, because in the city, it's just unaffordable. And the same thing in many other states. And that's one of the factors that contributes to homelessness, is that when people don't have a place to live, and you have greed where there's no regulations and people just do what they want, in terms of raising the rent to, like you say, 100%. It leaves people out on the street, like me and my mother, when we have done outreach work for the homeless for my foundation, Spanish United. A lot of them are Hispanic, and a lot of them tell me that part of the reason why they ended this place is because the landlord decides to raise the rent to like whatever amount, they can't afford it, and then they don't have a social safety net. And we do what we can to get them in housing by getting them referrals, getting them to offices, because many Hispanics, especially the ones that are immigrants who don't speak English, don't have a car, they really don't know where to go, or what to do. So that's where Spanish United comes in. We try to take care of their physical needs, like providing like sanitation, like toilet paper, food, water, and clothing. And we try to help everyone else an individual basis, to try to make it less stressful. But like you said, housing is very important, especially in the cities. So I think it's very important that there needs to be more emphasis on building affordable housing, especially for young professionals and working class people.
Yeah, look, it's always a challenge. And as I say to folks, we in government, usually the housing that we build is for either low income or seniors. So we're not good at building this workforce or professional component. We gotta create the conditions for that. We need to be supportive of the construction industry and the developers to do the right thing, and then support their efforts to build this kind of housing. There's a want in our city, and as long as I'm mayor, I'm going to try to support it and push it along as much as I can. But make no mistake, and this was very apparent during COVID. Like as I said, we're a very blue collar city. Our median income in this city is somewhere around $33,000 to $34,000, and that's per households. And so for us, making sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that there are people in our community that need help. And that's what I believe government was created to do, to help, not to interfere, not to go in there and dictate to people how to live. But if they turn to government for help, then we need to be in a position to try to help as best we can. And notwithstanding that, I'm a conservative by nature, especially economic conservative. I'm not blind to the fact of what goes on in our communities, because I live it. I live in my community. I'm not isolated in a gated community. I walk and shop where my residents walk and shop. And so yeah, anytime that we could help folks that need it, we need to do it. What I don't like government to do is to create a pattern where somehow or another we're taking care of your needs. In other words, giving you fish but not teaching you how to fish, right?
Right.
That's something that I'm a big fan of. Let's help people get up on their feet and point them in the right direction so they could live the life that they aspire to, not the one that somebody else wants them to live.
Right, I agree with you. And I do agree with you that one needs to learn to be independent, but at the same time, people need to have the means to be independent. Like there's a saying that goes, pull by your bootstraps, but how can you pull by your bootstraps if you don't have any bootstraps to hold on to? And I myself, I would say I'm more of a centrist when it comes to economics. Like I do believe that one needs to be independent, be self-sufficient, but at the same time, there needs to be accountability on those that that feel they could get away with things and manipulate government using their finances. So I feel that there needs to be accountability on both sides. Those that need help and the ones that want to control the market, want to control everything, and not let anyone else reap the benefits. Because I believe that everyone can reap the benefits if they work hard, but at the same time, there needs to be consequences for those that they just want to hoard everything and not let everyone else reach the same successes as they are. So I definitely
Yeah,
believe that, if there's accountability on both sides, there could be progress on success for all.
yeah, yeah. I agree. No disagreement there.
Perfect. So we come to the end of our interview. I want to tell you, Mara, thank you so much for being on the show. This is something that a lot of listeners have been waiting for a long time. And for your side, for the city of Hialeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me or to Spanish United, we are on social media. We are on Spanish United YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We take donations for anyone who wants to donate and wants to know more about us. And as soon as I'm done, I will do the uploading, and I will text you the link to your associate Mark. I believe
Yeah, yeah. Mark Gomez. Yes,
Mark
please.
Gomez. Yeah, I'll
Absolutely.
text it to him, and then you could share with everyone else. On your end.
Outstanding. Appreciate it, man.
Have
Thank
yourself
you.
have yourself a wonderful day, Mary. I think un buen día.
Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Bye bye.